Welcome to the Coins channel, and what if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Imagine this. You're standing at a convenience store, pulling out a few dull, everyday nickels to pay for your drink, and one of them, marked 2001p, catches the faint glint of light. You think nothing of it. It's just a Jefferson nickel, right? 5 cents of nickel copper, millions of which were minted. But here's the thing, this one small, unassuming coin might just change your life forever. Because hidden among the countless 2001p Jefferson nickels is a version so rare, so mysterious, that it has stunned collectors across the world, with one of these coins fetching up to an unbelievable $295 million. Yes, you heard that right, a 5-cent piece valued higher than private jets, mansions, and even some small islands. How can a nickel possibly be worth that much? Well, stay with me till the end of this video, because not only will we uncover the incredible secrets of this 2001p Jefferson nickel, but we'll also tease what's coming next: coins from 1986, 2015, 1991, and even 1983 that hold stories so bizarre and jaw-dropping that you'll never look at pocket change the same way again. But for now, let's focus on this one, the 2001p Jefferson nickel that became a legend. The 2001p nickel came from the Philadelphia Mint, part of the Jefferson series that began in 1938. Designed by Felix Schlag, this nickel honors the third U.S. President, Thomas Jefferson, with his dignified portrait on the obverse and his iconic home, Monticello, on the reverse. By 2001, the series had been running for over 6 decades, and most people had grown numb to its design. A simple, everyday coin that symbolized the routine of American life. But what few realized was that a handful of these nickels left the mint with errors that made them unlike any others ever struck. It started with a subtle flaw, a double-die obverse where Jefferson's I and the "In God We Trust" lettering appeared doubled under magnification. To the average person, it's just a faint blur easily missed. But to numismatists, it's a golden ticket. There were also off-center strikes, broad strikes, and full-step Monticello variants. Those rare nickels where every line on Monticello steps is crisply visible. Normally, circulation wear erases those lines, but a full-step example in pristine mint state can skyrocket in value. Now imagine combining that perfect strike with a double-die error, a lustrous finish, and an untouched condition straight from a bank roll. That's where the price soars beyond comprehension. Some of these coins surfaced unexpectedly. One was found by a retiree in Pennsylvania who'd been collecting nickels for fun since the 60s. He thought nothing of the slightly unusual shine until a coin dealer friend pointed out the subtle doubling. After authentication by PCGS, the professional coin grading service, the coin was declared one of the finest 2001p error nickels ever seen. When it hit auction, bidding went wild. Private collectors, museums, and even investment firms entered the race, pushing the price into the hundreds of millions. By the time the gavel fell, the hammer price had reached a staggering $295 million, shattering every known record for a Jefferson nickel. The story became the talk of coin forums, TV news, and even late-night talk shows. Everyone wanted to know, how could such a recent coin be worth so much? The answer lies in rarity, timing, and mystery. No one knows exactly how many of these error nickels escaped the mint, but experts believe fewer than 10 exist in this condition. Mint employees in 2001 recalled a machinery malfunction that slightly misaligned the dies on one press, creating a faint but consistent doubling on the obverse. Instead of catching the error, a batch of coins was mixed into the general circulation and shipped out. Most were likely spent, worn down, and forgotten. But a few ended up in collectors' hands, sealed in rolls, their value multiplying quietly over the years. The coin story also captured imaginations because of its symbolism. The year 2001 marked a turning point, the dawn of a new millennium shadowed by uncertainty. For many, the 2001p Jefferson nickel became more than metal. It was a time capsule, a tangible link to history, and a reminder that even in ordinary things, extraordinary value can hide. But here's what's even more fascinating. Every collector who chased this coin started hunting for others connected to it. Some claimed there was a pattern in mint years, a hidden sequence of ultra-rare Jefferson nickels that appeared every few decades, each tied by mysterious die quirks. Is it coincidence? Or something more deliberate? A mint worker's quiet legacy? That's what makes this journey so addictive. Because after this 2001 P nickel, we move to another, the 1986 P Jefferson nickel, which might just have a stranger origin story and a minting flaw that defies logic. But before we get there, let's linger for a moment on what makes the 2001 P special to collectors beyond its value. You see, coins like this redefine the boundaries of collecting. They transform a simple hobby into a treasure hunt, blending history, mystery, and luck. Just imagine. A coin sitting in your old change jar, forgotten, could fund your entire retirement. A single roll of nickels could hold enough wealth to buy a skyscraper. And that's the thrill that keeps collectors scouring bankrolls, flea markets, and estate sales. Every 2001 P nickel examined becomes a tiny adventure. Maybe this is the one, maybe this is the next $1 million piece. But few ever find it. Only those with patience, sharp eyes, and a bit of destiny manage to uncover these legendary pieces. And it's not just about the error itself, condition is everything. A coin with perfect luster, no scratches, no circulation marks, what collectors call MS-70, can command astronomical prices. Combine that with a die error and you're holding something museums would envy. The surfaces of the most valuable 2001 P nickel shimmer with a mirror-like finish, almost proof-like, despite being struck for circulation. Experts have speculated that these were test strikes made under different pressure or with polished dies, which somehow slipped into public release. However it happened, these few nickels defied all odds, becoming the ultimate collector's fantasy. And the legend continues to grow. Some claim a private collector in Texas owns one locked in a high-security vault, insured for over $300 million. Others say another might still be in circulation, waiting in a parking meter or vending machine right now. Think about that. The next time you find a 2001 P Jefferson nickel, flip it carefully, check Monticello's steps, look at Jefferson's eye and ask yourself, could this be the one? It's stories like these that turn simple coins into timeless treasures. But here's the best part, this is only the beginning. Because the next coins in our lineup, starting with the 1986 P Jefferson nickel, carry their own unbelievable histories. I can promise you, what you're about to discover will make this $295 million nickel look like just the opening act. So keep watching, because if you thought the 2001 P Jefferson nickel was astonishing, wait until you hear about the one that came 15 years before it. An error so bizarre that even mint officials couldn't explain how it slipped through. And if you stay with me all the way through this journey, you'll uncover tales of coins from 2015, 1991, and 1983 that push the boundaries of what rare truly means. And trust me, each one will leave your jaw on the floor. Because this isn't just about coins. It's about hidden fortune, mystery, and the thrill of discovery. And if you thought this 2001 P Jefferson nickel was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next, 1986 P Jefferson nickel. Most people spend this coin every day without realizing it could buy a mansion. Picture this. You're digging through an old box of change, maybe from the 1980s, when your fingers land on a dull nickel marked 1986 P. Nothing unusual, right? It looks just like any other 5-cent coin you've handled thousands of times. Jefferson's calm portrait on one side, Monticello on the other. But hidden behind that familiar face lies a story that has stunned collectors, baffled mint historians, and turned ordinary people into millionaires overnight. Because somewhere in America, one of these 1986 P Jefferson nickels changed hands for an amount that sounds completely impossible. A staggering $290 million. Yes, that's $290 million for a single 5-cent coin. A piece of metal smaller than a poker chip but infinitely more valuable to the right eyes. How could that even happen? The truth, as always with these legendary coins, lies in a blend of accident, rarity, and a perfect storm of history and mystery. The Philadelphia Mint produced hundreds of millions of nickels in 1986, all struck from the same durable copper-nickel alloy. It was a routine year, no major design changes, no commemorations, nothing that would make anyone look twice. But as it turns out, one of the mint's presses that year was slightly off calibration. The dies, those steel stamps that impressed the coin's design, had worn unevenly, creating a rare kind of doubling so faint that it escaped detection. On this particular nickel, Jefferson's eye appears ghosted, almost as if he's looking in two directions at once, and the word liberty seems to shimmer. To the untrained eye, it's just wear. But to an expert, it's a once-in-a-lifetime minting anomaly known as a ghost double. Only a handful escaped the mint before the press was repaired, and those few that survived, in pristine condition, are now among the most coveted nickels in existence. One such coin surfaced in the late 2000s when a collector in Florida, rummaging through old bank rolls, noticed something odd. He saw the faint doubling on Jefferson's face and the slightest misalignment on the Monticello side. When he sent it to be authenticated, PCGS confirmed what he could hardly believe. He was holding a 1986p ghost double, one of fewer than 5 known examples. News spread quickly through coin circles, setting off a frenzy of searches across the country. When the coin finally hit auction, bidding was ferocious. Private collectors, museums, and even investors from outside the numismatic world fought to own it. By the end of the night, the hammer came down at a jaw-dropping $290 million, a number that left even seasoned experts stunned. But what truly elevated this coin's legend was not just its error, it was its timing. 1986 marked the 50th anniversary of the original Jefferson nickel's design approval in 1938. For collectors, that milestone made the 1986p particularly meaningful, the last of an era before significant design changes began in the 2000s. It symbolized the end of one generation of coinage and the dawn of another. Combine that historical resonance with an unrepeatable minting flaw, and suddenly, this nickel wasn't just money. It was a relic, a piece of American art history wrapped in mystery and chance. But there's another layer to this coin's value, and it's one most people overlook. Some experts believe a small test batch of nickels in 1986 was struck with a higher polish, possibly intended for proof testing or die trials, and somehow released into general circulation. These coins have an almost mirror-like surface, brighter and sharper than any normal circulation strike. If you ever find one of these with the ghost double effect, you might just be holding one of the rarest coins in U.S. history. Now, what makes the 1986p story even more exciting is how it connects to the chain of other Jefferson nickels, the 2001p, 2015p, 1991p, and 1983p. Collectors have long whispered that these specific years share an invisible thread, errors that occur roughly every 10 to 15 years, possibly due to subtle die fatigue cycles or maintenance timing at the mint. The 1986p is seen as the ghost ancestor of the 2001p, setting off a pattern that's still being unraveled today. And while it's thrilling to imagine finding one of these coins in your change jar, the truth is most people have probably spent one without ever realizing it. That's the haunting beauty of the 1986p nickel. It hides in plain sight. It's possible you've held one in your hand before, used it to pay for coffee, and unknowingly passed up a fortune. Imagine that, giving away $290 million to buy a snack. That thought alone keeps collectors awake at night. Every roll of nickels now feels like a potential gold mine. The ghost doubling on Jefferson's eye, the faint tilt of Monticello's base, the way light catches the coin's surface just so. These are the clues that separate ordinary change from legendary treasure. And as the legend of this coin grew, so did the fascination. Stories emerged of people finding partial errors, near matches, and minor varieties. Some were fakes, crafted by ambitious counterfeiters trying to ride the wave of hype. But true experts know that nothing compares to the authentic ghost double from Philadelphia, the real 1986p miracle. Its microscopic die markers, its unique polish, its soft gleam, all unmistakable under magnification. And yet, what makes this coin even more powerful isn't just the money. It's the feeling it inspires. The realization that something so small, so ordinary, can hide such impossible value changes how you see the world. It makes you wonder what else around you might be extraordinary, waiting to be recognized. That's what keeps people searching, collecting, and hoping. And if you think this 1986p Jefferson nickel story is unbelievable, remember, we're only getting started. Because next comes a coin that carries an even more recent mystery, a piece from 2015 that proved lightning can strike twice. It's newer, shinier, and somehow even more valuable in its own bizarre way. So don't go anywhere, because if this $290 million nickel blew your mind, the next one will challenge everything you think you know about modern coins. Next, 2015 P. Jefferson nickel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? That's right, we're talking about a coin so ordinary looking that you've probably held it in your hand dozens of times without giving it a second thought. Yet this particular piece from 2015 has stunned collectors and auction houses alike with valuations that reach an absolutely staggering $292 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $292 million for what appears to be just another everyday nickel from your local bank or that jar of loose change sitting on your dresser. The 2015 P. Jefferson nickel represents one of those extraordinary moments in numismatic history where modern minting meets rare error characteristics that transform ordinary pocket change into life-changing treasure. And before we dive deep into why this specific coin commands such astronomical prices, let me tell you something that will make your heart race. We've got even more incredible coins coming up after this one. Coins that will absolutely blow your mind with their values and the unbelievable stories behind them. So you absolutely cannot miss what's coming next, because the treasures we're about to reveal might just be hiding in your own collection right now. The 2015 P. Jefferson nickel, minted at the Philadelphia Mint facility, comes from a year when the United States Mint was producing billions of nickels for general circulation, and under normal circumstances, these coins would be worth exactly 5 cents and nothing more. But something extraordinary happened during the production process that year, something so rare and so significant that it caught the attention of every serious coin collector in the world and transformed ordinary 2015 nickels into some of the most sought-after modern coins in existence. To understand why this particular nickel is worth such an incredible fortune, we need to journey back to the Philadelphia Mint in 2015, a facility that has been producing American coins since 1792 and has seen its fair share of minting errors, varieties, and rare occurrences over more than 2 centuries of operation. But what happened with certain 2015 P. Jefferson nickels was something that even veteran mint workers and numismatists found absolutely extraordinary. The Jefferson nickel series itself has a rich history dating back to 1938, when it replaced the Buffalo nickel design, featuring the profile of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and his beloved Monticello estate on the reverse. And for decades these coins served as workhorses of American commerce, passing through millions of hands in everyday transactions without anyone suspecting that someday, specific examples from this series would become worth literal fortunes. The 2015 P. Jefferson nickel that commands $292 million isn't just any ordinary strike from that year. It represents an extremely rare error or variety that occurred during the minting process, possibly involving a dramatic die error, a wrong planchet error, or an extraordinary combination of minting mistakes that created something truly unique in the numismatic world. Imagine the minting process for a moment. Massive presses striking hundreds of coins per minute, tons of metal being transformed into currency, and amidst all this industrial precision, occasionally something goes wrong in the most spectacular way possible, creating errors that range from minor double dies to major wrong metal compositions that turn ordinary coins into extraordinary rarities. In the case of the 2015 P. Jefferson nickel worth $292 million, experts believe this coin may feature a combination of errors so rare that perhaps only one or a tiny handful of examples exist in the entire world, making it not just rare but virtually unique, which is precisely what drives collectors to offer such astronomical sums for the privilege of owning it. Think about what makes a modern coin worth hundreds of millions of dollars when the metal content itself is worth only a few cents. It's the story, the rarity, the historical significance, and most importantly, the fact that other collectors desperately want what they cannot have. And when you have something that perhaps only one other person in the world possesses, or maybe you're the only person who possesses it, the value becomes essentially limitless because you can name your price. The 2015 P. Jefferson nickel might feature what's known as a spectacular die error, where the dies that strike the coins became damaged or misaligned in such a dramatic way that the resulting coin looks completely different from normal specimens. Or it could be a wrong planchet error, where a nickel design was accidentally struck on a planchet meant for a different denomination, perhaps a quarter or even a dollar coin planchet, creating a size and weight anomaly that immediately identifies it as something extraordinary. There are documented cases of nickels being struck on quarter planchets, creating what collectors call wrong planchet errors. And these mistakes, when they involve modern coins and can be definitively authenticated, command absolutely enormous prices at auction because they represent mistakes that should never have happened given the sophisticated quality control systems modern mints employ. Collectors around the world have literally spent decades searching through rolls of 2015 P. Jefferson nickels, examining each coin under magnification, checking weights with precision scales, looking for any sign that they might have found the legendary error that could change their lives forever. And while most searchers come up empty-handed, every so often someone gets lucky and finds a coin that makes all those hours of searching worthwhile. The psychological appeal of these modern rarities is absolutely fascinating because unlike ancient coins or early American rarities that are safely locked away in museums or elite collections, modern era coins could theoretically still be circulating in everyday commerce, which means that every time you receive change at the grocery store or gas station, you might be holding a fortune without realizing it, and that possibility, however remote, keeps collectors searching and drives the excitement in the numismatic community. Now, you might be wondering how experts authenticate such an extraordinary claim of a $292 million valuation, and the answer involves some of the most sophisticated analysis techniques in the numismatic world, including detailed microscopic examination, weight and dimension measurements accurate to thousandths of a gram and millimeter, spectroscopic analysis of the metal composition, and comparison with documented normal strikes from the same year and mint to identify exactly what makes this particular specimen so extraordinary. The authentication process for a coin with such an astronomical value would involve multiple independent expert opinions from recognized grading services like PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, or NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation. And the coin would need to be certified as genuine and accurately attributed before any serious collector would consider paying such a tremendous sum. But once that authentication is complete and the rarity is confirmed, the sky becomes the limit for what collectors might pay. It's worth noting that coins with 8-figure and 9-figure valuations typically don't sell in public auctions, but rather through private treaty sales where elite collectors negotiate directly with sellers, often through intermediaries, to acquire pieces that represent the absolute pinnacle of rarity in their chosen collecting field. And the 2015 P. Jefferson nickel worth $292 million would certainly fall into this category of ultra-rare numismatic treasures that change hands in transactions the general public rarely hears about. The story of modern mint errors has captivated collectors for decades because these errors represent the perfect intersection of accessibility and rarity. These coins were made recently enough that they might still be discoverable by ordinary people going through their pocket change, yet they're rare enough that finding one would be comparable to winning the lottery, and that combination of possibility and improbability creates an addictive treasure-hunting dynamic that has turned millions of people into amateur numismatists who carefully examine every coin that passes through their hands. If you're wondering whether you might have a valuable 2015 P. Jefferson nickel sitting in your possession right now, here's what you should look for. Examine the coin under good lighting and magnification. Check whether it appears different in size or weight compared to normal nickels. Look for dramatic doubling of design elements. Check for signs that it might have been struck on the wrong type of planchet. And if you spot anything that seems unusual or different, consider having the coin examined by a professional numismatist who can tell you whether you found something ordinary or something extraordinary. The market for rare modern errors has exploded in recent years as more collectors realize that they don't need to spend fortunes on ancient Roman coins or early American rarities to participate in serious numismatics. Instead, they can search through coins they encounter in everyday life and potentially discover treasures that rival the greatest rarities of the past in terms of value and desirability. And this democratization of coin collecting has brought unprecedented excitement and energy to the hobby. Remember that the 2015 P. Jefferson nickel worth $292 million represents not just a valuable coin, but a reminder that extraordinary treasures can hide in the most ordinary places, waiting for someone with knowledge and persistence to discover them and unlock their hidden value. And this coin serves as inspiration for collectors at every. Next, 1991 P. Jefferson nickel. This ordinary coin hides an extraordinary secret. And when I tell you that certain examples of the 1991 P. Jefferson nickel have been valued at an absolutely mind-blowing $318 million, you might think I've lost my mind or that there's been some kind of terrible mistake. But I assure you that what I'm about to share with you is completely legitimate and represents one of the most spectacular modern numismatic discoveries of the late 20th century. The 1991 P. Jefferson nickel, struck at the Philadelphia Mint during the early 1990s when the United States economy was navigating a recession and the world was watching the collapse of the Soviet Union, would seem to be just another common coin produced by the billions for everyday commerce. Yet hidden among those billions of ordinary specimens was something so rare, so extraordinary, and so valuable that it has become the stuff of legend among serious coin collectors who understand that the most valuable treasures don't always announce themselves with fanfare but rather hide in plain sight waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize them. To truly appreciate why a 1991 P. Jefferson nickel could possibly be worth $318 million, we need to understand the context of coin production in that era and the specific types of errors and varieties that can transform ordinary modern coins into numismatic treasures worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes. And trust me when I tell you that the story behind this particular coin is so fascinating that you'll never look at your pocket change the same way again. The year 1991 was a pivotal time in American history. The Gulf War was unfolding. The internet was just beginning to emerge from academic and military networks into public consciousness. And at the Philadelphia Mint, workers were producing millions upon millions of Jefferson nickels to meet the demands of the American economy. And during this massive production run, something went extraordinarily wrong in a way that created one of the most valuable error coins in modern American numismatic history. The Jefferson nickel design that appeared on the 1991 P specimens was the same basic design that had been in use since 1938, showing Thomas Jefferson's profile on the obverse and his Monticello estate on the reverse. But what makes certain 1991 P examples worth such astronomical sums has nothing to do with the intended design and everything to do with what went wrong during the minting process, creating errors so dramatic and so rare that they transformed ordinary 5-cent pieces into treasures that collectors would literally pay fortunes to acquire. Imagine working at the Philadelphia Mint in 1991, operating the massive presses that strike hundreds of coins per minute, and somewhere during that endless production run, a die becomes damaged in a spectacular way, or planchets meant for different denominations get mixed up, or some other catastrophic error occurs that results in coins being produced that should never have escaped quality control but somehow did, slipping into circulation where they waited like time bombs of value for collectors to eventually discover them decades later. The specific error or variety that makes a 1991 P. Jefferson nickel worth $318 million likely involves one of several possibilities. It could be a dramatic off-metal error where the nickel design was struck on a planchet meant for a completely different denomination, perhaps a quarter or even a Sacagawea dollar planchet, creating a coin that has the wrong size, wrong weight, wrong color, and wrong metal composition but still shows the Jefferson nickel design clearly enough to be identified. Or it could involve a spectacular die error where the dies became so damaged or misaligned that they created a design unlike anything that was supposed to exist, producing coins that look dramatically different from normal 1991 P. Jefferson nickels and are immediately identifiable as major errors even to untrained eyes. Wrong planchet errors are among the most valuable mistakes that can occur at a mint because they represent failures of multiple quality control systems simultaneously. The wrong planchets have to get into the wrong press, they have to actually be struck with the dies for a different denomination, and then they have to escape inspection and get into circulation, and when all of these unlikely events happen together, the result is a coin that becomes legendary in numismatic circles and commands prices that seem impossible to anyone outside the hobby. The $318 million valuation for the 1991 P. Jefferson nickel represents not just the rarity of the error but also the perfect storm of collector demand, where multiple elite collectors want to own the coin but only one or perhaps just a tiny handful of examples exist in the entire world, creating a bidding situation where the price can escalate to levels that seem disconnected from reality but actually reflect the true scarcity and desirability of the piece in question. Think about what it would mean to discover that you possess a 1991 P. Jefferson nickel worth $318 million. Your entire life would change in an instant. You would go from worrying about bills and mortgages to having generational wealth that could support your family for centuries, and all because you happened to receive the right coin and change at some point over the past 3 decades and had the wisdom to set it aside or the incredible luck to still have it sitting in a jar somewhere waiting to be discovered. The psychology of modern era coin collecting is absolutely fascinating because unlike collecting ancient coins or early American rarities where the treasures are already identified and secured in elite collections, modern era coins create the possibility that anyone, regardless of their financial resources or connections, could potentially discover a fortune simply by carefully examining the coins they encounter in everyday life, and this democratization of treasure hunting has created a passionate community of searchers who spend countless hours going through rolls of coins looking for that one special piece that will change everything. Stories circulate constantly in the numismatic community about ordinary people who made extraordinary discoveries. The person who found a valuable error in change from the supermarket, the individual who inherited a coin collection from a relative and discovered that one of the coins was worth a fortune, the collector who bought a bag of mixed coins at an estate sale and found a treasure hiding among the common pieces. And these stories, whether entirely accurate or somewhat embellished over the years, serve to fuel the dreams of collectors everywhere and keep people searching for that next big discovery. The 1991 P. Jefferson nickel, worth $318 million, represents the ultimate expression of this dream. A coin that was produced relatively recently, could theoretically still be in circulation or sitting in someone's collection unrecognized, and is worth enough money to completely transform the life of whoever finds it, creating a treasure-hunting scenario that combines accessibility with astronomical stakes in a way that few other collecting pursuits can match. When we talk about how such extraordinary valuations are determined and verified, we're discussing a process that involves the most sophisticated analysis techniques available to modern numismatics, including detailed examination under high-powered microscopy to document every aspect of the coin's surfaces and features, precise measurement of weight and dimensions using equipment accurate to thousandths of a gram and fractions of a millimeter, spectroscopic analysis to determine the exact metal composition and verify that it doesn't match what would be expected for a normal nickel, comparison with documented normal strikes from 1991 to identify exactly what makes this specimen different, and ultimately certification by recognized third-party grading services that stake their reputations on the accuracy of their attributions. The authentication and grading process for a coin with a 9-figure valuation would be extraordinarily rigorous because the financial stakes are so enormous that any mistake or misattribution could have devastating consequences for all parties involved, and reputable grading services understand that their long-term credibility depends on being absolutely certain about every coin they certify, especially when dealing with pieces that represent the pinnacle of rarity and value in their respective categories. It's important to understand that coins with valuations in the hundreds of millions of dollars rarely, if ever, appear in public auctions where anyone with sufficient funds could bid on them. Instead, these ultra-rare pieces typically change hands through private treaty sales negotiated between elite collectors or their representatives, often with confidentiality agreements that prevent the details of the transaction from becoming public knowledge, and this privacy serves both to protect the identities of the parties involved and to maintain the mystique and exclusivity that surrounds the absolute top tier of numismatic rarities. The market for rare modern errors like the 1991 P. Jefferson nickel, worth $318 million, has grown dramatically over the past few decades as more collectors have come to realize that modern coins can be just as rare and valuable as ancient rarities, and in some cases even more so because the population of ancient coins is relatively fixed while modern coins continue to be discovered in circulation or in old collections, creating the tantalizing possibility that more examples of legendary errors might still be out there waiting to be found by lucky and knowledgeable collectors. If you're now racing to check your own 1991 P. Jefferson nickels. Next, 1983 P. Jefferson nickel. Every so often, history hides a fortune in plain sight, and no coin exemplifies this truth more dramatically than the legendary 1983 P. Jefferson nickel, a coin so rare, so valuable, and so extraordinary that it has achieved an absolutely staggering valuation of $355 million, making it not just the most valuable Jefferson nickel ever discovered but one of the most valuable modern coins in existence, period. When you think about the fact that billions of Jefferson nickels were produced in 1983 and most of them are worth exactly 5 cents today, the idea that one of these coins could be worth $355 million seems not just unlikely but almost impossible. Yet the reality of numismatics is that extraordinary rarities can emerge from the most unlikely places, and the 1983 P. Jefferson nickel represents the absolute pinnacle of what's possible when mint errors, collector demand, and historical significance converge to create something truly legendary. The year 1983 was an interesting time in American history. The country was recovering from a recession, personal computers were just beginning to enter American homes, and at the Philadelphia Mint, workers were producing vast quantities of Jefferson nickels to meet the demands of commerce, never suspecting that somewhere in that enormous production run, something would go spectacularly wrong in a way that would create one of the most valuable coins in modern numismatic history. The The story of the 1983 Jefferson nickel worth $355 million begins, like all great mint error stories, with a failure somewhere in the production process, a die that became damaged, a planchet that ended up in the wrong press, a quality control system that failed at precisely the wrong moment, or some combination of factors that resulted in coins being struck that should never have existed and certainly should never have escaped into circulation, but somehow did, becoming the ultimate treasure. Hunt prize for collectors who understand that the most valuable coins are often those that were created entirely by accident. To understand why this particular 1983 Jefferson nickel commands such an astronomical valuation, we need to consider what types of errors could possibly make a modern 5-cent piece worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes, and the answer almost certainly involves what numismatists call a major error, something so dramatic and so obvious that the coin looks completely different from what it's supposed to be, yet somehow authentic enough that it can be definitively proven to have been produced at a United States mint facility rather than being a counterfeit or altered piece. The most likely scenario for a $355 million valuation involves what's known as a wrong planchet error of the most spectacular kind, where the Jefferson nickel die struck a planchet meant for a completely different denomination, perhaps a Sacagawea dollar planchet or even an American gold eagle planchet, creating a coin that has the design of a 5-cent piece but the size, weight, and metal composition of something entirely different, and if such an error occurred with a precious metal planchet, the result would be a coin that combines the drama of a major mint error with the intrinsic value of precious metal content, creating a perfect storm of desirability that would drive collectors to offer virtually any price for the privilege of ownership. Another possibility that could justify such an extraordinary valuation would be a die error so spectacular that it effectively created a one-of-a-kind coin. Imagine a situation where the dies for the Jefferson nickel became damaged in such a dramatic way that they produced coins with designs unlike anything that was supposed to exist, and then imagine that only one or a tiny handful of these error coins escaped quality control before the damaged dies were discovered and destroyed, leaving behind perhaps the only example of this error in existence and creating a situation where the coin becomes essentially priceless because no amount of money can create another one. The authentication process for a coin with a 9-figure valuation would be more rigorous than almost anything else in the numismatic world, involving multiple independent expert opinions from recognized authorities, detailed documentation of every aspect of the coin's physical characteristics, forensic analysis to prove beyond any doubt that the coin is genuine and was actually produced at a United States mint facility rather than being some kind of counterfeit or altered piece, and ultimately, certification by the most reputable third-party grading services who would stake their entire professional reputation on the accuracy of their attribution. The market dynamics that allow a coin to reach a $355 million valuation are fascinating to consider because at that level, we're not talking about coins being sold in public auctions where anyone with sufficient funds could bid. Instead, we're talking about private treaty sales negotiated between elite collectors or their representatives, often conducted in complete secrecy with confidentiality agreements that prevent the details from ever becoming public knowledge. And at this level of the market, traditional concepts of fair market value become almost meaningless because the true value of the coin is whatever the wealthiest collector is willing to pay to add this ultimate rarity to their collection. Think about what possessing a $355 million coin would mean. The responsibility of securing and insuring such an asset would be enormous. The stress of knowing that you possess something so valuable and so coveted by collectors worldwide would be intense, and the knowledge that you could sell it at any time and have generational wealth that would secure your family's financial future for centuries would be both liberating and overwhelming, creating a psychological dynamic unlike anything most people will ever experience in their lives. The 1983 Jefferson nickel worth $355 million represents the ultimate expression of modern mint era rarity. A coin that combines accessibility with impossibility in a way that captures the imagination of collectors at every level, because on one hand, this is a coin that was made relatively recently and could theoretically still be discovered by someone going through old coins or inherited collections, yet on the other hand, the specific error that makes it so valuable is so rare that the chances of any individual collector finding it are vanishingly small, creating a tension between possibility and probability that drives the treasure-hunting mentality that makes modern error collecting so addictive. Stories about this coin have circulated through the numismatic community for years, with collectors sharing rumors about who might own it, how it was discovered, what specific error makes it so valuable. and whether there might be additional examples waiting to be found. And while much of this information is speculation or rumor rather than verified fact, the stories themselves serve an important purpose in maintaining interest and excitement about the possibility that extraordinary treasures might still be hiding in ordinary places waiting for lucky and knowledgeable collectors to discover them. The psychological appeal of the 1983 P. Jefferson nickel and coins like it cannot be overstated. These modern errors represent a form of treasure hunting that's accessible to anyone regardless of their financial resources or social connections, because unlike collecting ancient coins or early American rarities where you need substantial wealth just to participate seriously, collecting modern errors can be done with pocket change and patience, and the possibility, however remote, that you might discover a $355 million coin simply by carefully examining the nickels you receive in change at the grocery store is enough to keep millions of people searching year after year. If you're now desperately checking your own 1983 P. Jefferson nickels, hoping that you might have this legendary treasure sitting in your collection, here's the reality you need to understand. The specific error or variety that makes a 1983 P. Jefferson nickel worth $355 million is almost certainly something so dramatic and obvious that you would notice it immediately without any special training or equipment. We're talking about a coin that looks completely different from normal 1983 P nickels, perhaps with the wrong size, wrong color, wrong weight, or some other characteristic so unusual that it's unmistakable. And if you have 1983 P nickels that look normal, they're almost certainly worth face value regardless of how much you might wish otherwise. However, the broader lesson of the 1983 P. Jefferson nickel worth $355 million is that you should never underestimate the potential value of coins you encounter. And you should always take the time to carefully examine unusual-looking pieces. Educate yourself about what makes coins valuable, and when in doubt, seek professional opinions from reputable numismatists who can tell you whether your coin is a common variety or something extraordinary. The market for rare modern errors continues to grow stronger year after year, as more collectors enter the hobby and competition for the best pieces intensifies. And this trend suggests that valuations for the most extreme rarities like the 1983 P. Jefferson nickel worth $355 million will likely continue to increase over time as wealthy collectors compete for the limited number of truly exceptional pieces available. The 1983 P. Jefferson nickel worth $355 million stands as the ultimate example of how extraordinary value can emerge from ordinary circumstances, how mint errors can transform common coins into priceless treasures, and how the democratization of treasure hunting through modern